Welcome brave souls to Dreadful Diaries, where the shadows whisper secrets and the night holds untold horrors. If you crave the thrill of the unknown, make sure to subscribe and join our community of fellow horror enthusiasts. Now dim the lights, grab a blanket, and let's dive into our first tale of terror.
In a small town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, the local police department was known for its dedication to solving crimes, but even the most diligent officers sometimes found themselves stumped. One rainy afternoon, Detective Sarah Mitchell stumbled upon a dusty box in the evidence room while searching for materials related to an old case. Inside, she found files on a cold case that had long been forgotten: the disappearance of a young woman named Emily Carter. Emily had vanished 5 years earlier, and despite extensive searches, no leads had ever surfaced. The case had gone cold, and the town had moved on, but Sarah felt a nagging pull to revisit it. She gathered her partner, Officer Jake Reynolds, and together they decided to reopen the investigation. As they delved into Emily's life, they discovered that she had been a vibrant young woman with dreams of becoming an artist. Friends described her as kind and creative, but there were whispers of a troubled relationship with a man named Mark, who had a reputation for being possessive. Sarah and Jake decided to track down Mark, hoping he could shed light on Emily's disappearance. When they found him, Mark was living in a rundown apartment on the outskirts of town. He appeared disheveled and paranoid, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to follow him. When questioned about Emily, he became defensive, insisting he had nothing to do with her disappearance. However, his erratic behavior raised red flags for Sarah and Jake. Determined to uncover the truth, they continued their investigation, interviewing Emily's friends and family. They learned that she had been planning to leave Mark, which only deepened the mystery surrounding her disappearance. As they pieced together her last known movements, they discovered that Emily had been seen near an abandoned cabin in the woods just days before she vanished. Intrigued, Sarah and Jake decided to investigate the cabin. The journey through the dense forest was eerie, with the sound of rustling leaves and distant animal calls heightening their senses. When they finally reached the cabin, it stood in disrepair, its windows shattered and the door hanging off its hinges. Inside, they found remnants of a life once lived, old furniture, scattered belongings, and a sense of abandonment that hung heavy in the air. As they searched the cabin, strange occurrences began to unfold. The temperature dropped suddenly, and they felt an inexplicable chill. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, and they heard faint whispers that seemed to echo through the walls. Sarah dismissed it as nerves, but Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. In a small bedroom, they discovered a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside lay a journal belonging to Emily, filled with her thoughts and sketches. The last entry sent shivers down their spines. "I feel trapped. I need to get away from him. I'm scared he'll find me." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the main room, causing both officers to jump. They rushed out to find a heavy piece of furniture had toppled over, as if pushed by an unseen force. Heart racing, they exchanged worried glances, but their determination to uncover the truth pushed them forward. As they continued to search the cabin, they found a small locket containing a picture of Emily and a note that read, "I will always love you." The note was signed with a name they hadn't encountered before, Liam. Confused, they realized they needed to find out who Liam was. Back at the station, they dug deeper into Emily's past and discovered that Liam was her childhood friend, someone she had lost touch with after moving away. They managed to track him down, and when they spoke to him, he revealed that he had always cared for Emily and had tried to reach out to her before she disappeared. Liam shared that he had seen Emily near the cabin shortly before she vanished. He had tried to warn her about Mark, but she had been too afraid to listen. As he spoke, Sarah and Jake felt a strange connection to the story, as if Emily's spirit was guiding them. Determined to find closure, they returned to the cabin one last time. As they stood in the main room, the air grew thick with tension. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew through the open door, and they heard a soft voice whisper, "Help me." In that moment, they understood that Emily's spirit was trapped, unable to find peace. They vowed to bring justice for her and ensure that her story was not forgotten. With renewed determination, they gathered evidence and presented their findings to the district attorney, leading to a renewed investigation into Mark. As the case unfolded, it became clear that Mark had been involved in Emily's disappearance. With mounting evidence, he was arrested, and the truth about what happened to Emily began to surface. The town was shaken, but Sarah and Jake felt a sense of relief knowing they had finally given Emily a voice. Months later, as they stood at Emily's memorial, they felt a profound sense of closure. The community had come together to honor her memory, and the truth had finally been revealed. Emily's family, who had suffered in silence for years, expressed their gratitude to Sarah and Jake for their relentless pursuit of justice. As they stood by the memorial, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves around them, and for a brief moment, both officers felt a warm presence enveloping them. It was as if Emily's spirit was there, thanking them for bringing her story to light and allowing her to rest in peace. In the months that followed, the town began to heal. The case had not only brought justice for Emily but had also sparked conversations about domestic violence and the importance of speaking out. Sarah and Jake became advocates for victims, sharing Emily's story to raise awareness and encourage others to seek help. One evening, as they were wrapping up a community event focused on safety and support, Sarah received a call from a local resident. The caller reported strange occurrences in the woods near the cabin, claiming to hear whispers and see shadows moving among the trees. Sarah and Jake exchanged glances, remembering their own experiences at the cabin. Curiosity piqued, they decided to investigate. Armed with flashlights and a sense of purpose, they ventured back into the woods. As they approached the cabin, the air felt charged with energy, and the memories of their previous encounters flooded back. Inside, they found the cabin untouched, but the atmosphere was different. It felt lighter, as if Emily's spirit had finally found peace. They took a moment to reflect on the journey they had undertaken, the lives they had touched, and the importance of their work. As they prepared to leave, Sarah noticed something glimmering on the floor. It was the locket they had found during their first visit, now lying in the center of the room. She picked it up, feeling a sense of connection to Emily. It was a reminder of the bond they had formed with her spirit and the impact of their investigation. With the locket in hand, they stepped outside, and the moonlight illuminated the path ahead. As they walked back through the woods, they felt a sense of fulfillment. They had not only solved the mystery but had also given a voice to the voiceless. From that day forward, Sarah and Jake continued their work with renewed vigor, knowing that every case mattered and that sometimes, the spirits of the past could guide them toward the truth. Emily's story became a beacon of hope for others, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, justice could prevail, and the forgotten could be remembered. As they left the woods behind, they felt a gentle breeze at their backs, as if Emily was walking with them, finally free to explore the world she had once loved. The bond they had formed with her spirit would remain with them forever, a testament to the power of compassion, determination, and the unbreakable connection between the living and the departed. In the quiet town of Maplewood, the local police department prided itself on maintaining peace and order. However, there was one patrol car, Unit 47, that had gained a reputation for being haunted. Officers who drove it reported strange occurrences that left them unsettled and questioning their sanity. The stories began when Officer Mark Thompson, a seasoned veteran with over a decade on the force, was assigned to Unit 47. On his first night shift, he noticed that the radio would occasionally turn on by itself, blaring static or playing snippets of old songs from the 80s. At first, he thought it was a malfunction, but after several nights of the same occurrence, he began to feel uneasy. One particularly cold night, Mark was patrolling a deserted stretch of road when the radio suddenly blared to life, cutting through the silence. He reached to turn it off, but before he could, he heard a faint voice whispering, "Help me." Startled, he glanced around, but the road was empty. Shaking off the feeling, he continued his patrol, but the incident lingered in his mind. The following week, Officer Lisa Ramirez, a rookie on the force, was assigned to ride with Mark. On their first night together, she quickly learned about the strange happenings associated with Unit 47. Mark shared his experiences, and Lisa laughed it off, thinking it was just an old car with quirks. However, as the night wore on, she began to feel the weight of the vehicle's eerie reputation. As they drove through the town, Lisa felt a sudden chill wash over her, despite the heater blasting. She shivered and looked at Mark, who was focused on the road. "Did you feel that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark nodded, his expression serious. "It happens sometimes. Just wait, it gets weirder." Later that night, while parked at a gas station, the two officers decided to take a break. As they sat in the car, the radio turned on again, this time playing a haunting melody. The air inside the vehicle grew colder, and Lisa could see her breath fogging in front of her. "This isn't funny, Mark," she said, her heart racing. Suddenly, the lights in the patrol car flickered, and the engine sputtered. Mark tried to restart the car, but it wouldn't turn over. Panic set in as they realized they were stranded in the middle of nowhere. Just then, the radio crackled, and a voice came through, clearer this time, "Get out." Both officers exchanged terrified glances. "What the hell was that?" Lisa exclaimed, her voice trembling. Mark's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here." They opened the doors and stepped outside, the cold night air hitting them like a wave. As they stood by the car, they heard a faint sound coming from the woods nearby, a soft, sorrowful cry. It was as if someone was calling for help. Against their better judgment, they decided to investigate. With flashlights in hand, they ventured into the woods, following the sound. The trees loomed overhead, casting eerie shadows in the beam of their lights. As they moved deeper into the forest, the cries grew louder, echoing around them. "This is insane," Lisa whispered, her heart pounding. "We should go back." But Mark pressed on, driven by a sense of duty. They finally reached a small clearing where they found an old, dilapidated cabin. The cries were now unmistakable, coming from inside. Hesitant but determined, they approached the door, which creaked ominously as they pushed it open. Inside, the cabin was dark and musty, filled with the remnants of a life long forgotten. As they stepped in, the temperature dropped even further, and the cries turned into desperate pleas. "Help me, please." Mark and Lisa exchanged horrified looks. "We need to call for backup," Mark said, pulling out his radio. But as he tried to communicate, the radio emitted only static. Frustrated, he tossed it aside. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the corner of the room. A translucent woman, her face twisted in anguish. "Help me," she repeated, her voice echoing in the cabin. Mark and Lisa froze, fear gripping them. The woman pointed toward a corner of the room, where a small, dusty trunk lay. Gathering their courage, they approached the trunk. As they opened it, they found old photographs and personal belongings belonging to a young woman who had gone missing years ago. The realization hit them: this was the spirit of the woman, trapped and seeking help to find peace. "We need to get her story out," Lisa said, her voice steadying. "She deserves to be remembered." Mark nodded, understanding the weight of their discovery. They took the items back to the patrol car, determined to honor the woman's memory and bring closure to her tragic fate. As they drove back to the station, the atmosphere in Unit 47 felt different. The cold spots had dissipated, and the radio remained silent, as if the spirit had finally found some semblance of peace. Mark and Lisa exchanged glances, both relieved and unsettled by the night's events. Once they arrived at the station, they carefully laid out the contents of the trunk on a table. The photographs revealed a vibrant young woman named Sarah Collins, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances a decade earlier. The officers quickly began researching her case, uncovering details that had long been buried. They discovered that Sarah had been last seen leaving a party, and her boyfriend at the time had been a person of interest but was never charged. Mark and Lisa decided to dig deeper into the boyfriend's background, hoping to find new evidence that could lead to a breakthrough in the case. As they worked through the night, they uncovered a series of disturbing incidents involving the boyfriend, including reports of domestic violence and harassment. With this new information, they contacted the district attorney, who agreed to reopen the investigation into Sarah's disappearance. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Mark and Lisa worked tirelessly, interviewing witnesses and gathering evidence. They even managed to track down Sarah's family, who had never given up hope of finding her. The family was grateful for the renewed attention to the case and provided additional insights that helped the investigation. As the case gained traction, the boyfriend was brought in for questioning. Under pressure, he eventually confessed to having been involved in Sarah's disappearance, leading investigators to a remote location in the woods where he had buried her body. The discovery brought a mix of relief and sorrow to Sarah's family, who finally had closure after years of uncertainty. With the case solved, Mark and Lisa felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had not only brought justice for Sarah but had also freed her spirit from the torment of being forgotten. The haunting occurrences in Unit 47 ceased, and the patrol car returned to its normal state, no longer a vessel of sorrow but a symbol of hope and resilience. In the months that followed, the story of Sarah Collins became a rallying point for the community. Mark and Lisa organized events to raise awareness about missing persons and domestic violence, ensuring that Sarah's memory would live on. They shared her story with schools and community groups, encouraging others to speak out and seek help. One evening, as they wrapped up a community event, Mark and Lisa stood outside the station, reflecting on their journey. The night was calm, and the stars twinkled above them. They felt a gentle breeze, and for a moment, they both sensed a presence beside them, a feeling of gratitude and peace. "Do you think she's finally at rest?" Lisa asked, looking up at the sky. Mark nodded, a smile crossing his face. "I believe she is. We did what we set out to do." From that day forward, Unit 47 became a symbol of hope for the Maplewood Police Department. It served as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the truth could prevail, and the forgotten could be remembered. Mark and Lisa continued their work, knowing that they had made a difference, not just for Sarah, but for all those who had suffered in silence. And as they patrolled the streets of Maplewood, They carried with them the spirit of a young woman who had once been lost but was now forever a part of their lives, a testament to the power of compassion, determination, and the unbreakable bond between the living and the departed. In the small town of Crestwood, the local police department had always been a tight-knit community, where officers looked out for one another. However, a chilling phenomenon began to unfold during the night shifts at the station. Officers started reporting sightings of a shadowy figure lurking in the corners of their vision, a presence that seemed to watch over them as they patrolled the quiet streets. The first officer to encounter the figure was Officer Jake Lawson, a seasoned veteran known for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts. One night, while on patrol, he noticed a dark shape darting between the trees in Crestwood Park. At first, he dismissed it as a trick of the light, but as he continued his rounds, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. The following week, Officer Emily Carter, a rookie on the force, experienced something similar. While sitting in the station during a late-night shift, she caught a glimpse of a shadow moving past the window. When she looked outside, there was nothing there, but the sensation of being watched lingered. She shared her experience with Jake, who nodded knowingly. "You're not the first to see it," he said, his voice low. "Some believe it's the spirit of Officer Daniels." Officer Mark Daniels had been a beloved member of the department, known for his dedication and bravery. Tragically, he had died in the line of duty 2 years earlier while responding to a domestic disturbance. His loss had left a profound impact on the department, and many officers believed that his spirit lingered, watching over them. As the sightings continued, the atmosphere in the station grew tense. Officers began to share their experiences, recounting how they felt a cold breeze pass through the room or heard faint whispers when they were alone. Some claimed to have seen the shadowy figure standing at the edge of their peripheral vision, only to vanish when they turned to look. One night, during a particularly quiet shift, Jake and Emily were assigned to patrol together. As they drove through the dimly lit streets, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Do you think it's really Officer Daniels?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake shrugged, glancing at the rearview mirror. "I don't know. But I do believe he's still with us in some way. He cared about this department, and I think he wants to protect us." As they continued their patrol, they received a call about a disturbance at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The two officers arrived on the scene, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The warehouse loomed ominously, its broken windows resembling hollow eyes watching them approach. "Stay close," Jake instructed, his instincts on high alert. They entered the warehouse, the air thick with dust and the scent of decay. As they moved deeper inside, they heard strange noises. Soft thuds and the sound of something scraping against the floor. Suddenly, Emily caught sight of the shadowy figure standing at the far end of the warehouse. "Jake!" she exclaimed, pointing. But when he turned, the figure was gone. "I swear I saw it," she insisted, her heart racing. "Let's check it out," Jake said, trying to remain calm. They cautiously approached the spot where Emily had seen the figure, but there was nothing there. Just as they were about to turn back, a cold breeze swept through the warehouse, causing the hairs on the back of their necks to stand on end. "Did you feel that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Before Jake could respond, they heard a faint whisper echoing through the darkness. "Help me." The voice sent chills down their spines. "We need to get out of here," Jake said, urgency creeping into his tone. They turned to leave, but as they did, the shadow reappeared, this time closer, its form more defined. It seemed to be watching them, its presence both unsettling and oddly protective. "Officer Daniels?" Emily whispered, her heart pounding. "Is that you?" In that moment, the shadow seemed to shift, and the air grew warmer. The whispers faded, replaced by a sense of calm. Jake and Emily exchanged glances, realizing that the figure was not there to harm them but to guide them. With newfound determination, they made their way back to the entrance of the warehouse. As they stepped outside, the shadowy figure lingered at the threshold, watching over them as they left. The moment they were outside, the figure vanished into the night. Back at the station, Jake and Emily recounted their experience to their fellow officers. The story spread quickly, and the belief that Officer Daniels was watching over them grew stronger. The sightings of the shadowy figure became less frequent, but the officers felt a renewed sense of camaraderie and purpose. In the weeks that followed, the department organized a memorial for Officer Daniels, inviting the community to honor his memory. As the day of the memorial arrived, the atmosphere was filled with a mix of somber reflection and celebration of a life dedicated to service. Officers, family, and friends gathered at the station, sharing stories of Mark's bravery, kindness, and unwavering commitment to the community. As the ceremony began, Jake and Emily stood together, surrounded by their fellow officers. The chief of police spoke about Mark's legacy, emphasizing the impact he had on the department and the town. "He was not just a colleague but a friend to us all," the chief said, his voice thick with emotion. "We honor his memory today, knowing that he continues to watch over us." As the sun began to set, the officers lit candles in Mark's honor, creating a warm glow that illuminated the gathering. Just as they were about to conclude the ceremony, a sudden gust of wind swept through the area, extinguishing some of the candles. Gasps echoed among the crowd, but Jake and Emily exchanged knowing glances. "Do you think he's here?" Emily asked. Softly, her eyes scanning the crowd. "I do," Jake replied, a smile creeping onto his face. "I think he's proud of us." As the memorial concluded, the officers shared a moment of silence, reflecting on their fallen comrade. In that stillness, many felt a comforting presence, as if Mark was standing among them, offering reassurance and strength. In the weeks that followed, the sightings of the shadowy figure diminished, but the bond among the officers grew stronger. They often shared stories of their encounters, and the legend of the Shadow Man became a cherished part of the department's history. Officers began to feel a sense of protection during their night shifts, knowing that Mark was watching over them. One night, as Jake and Emily were on patrol, they drove past the warehouse where they had encountered the shadow. The building stood silent, but as they passed, they both felt a familiar chill in the air. "Do you think he's still here?" Emily asked, glancing at Jake. "Maybe," Jake replied, a thoughtful expression on his face. "But I think he's found peace. He knows we're okay." As they continued their patrol, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. The shadowy figure had transformed from a source of fear into a symbol of protection and camaraderie. The officers of Crestwood knew that they were not alone. They carried the spirit of Officer Mark Daniels with them, guiding them through the darkness. From that day forward, the story of the Shadow Man became a part of the department's lore, a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, love and loyalty endure. The officers continued to honor Mark's memory, not just through stories but by embodying the values he had instilled in them: bravery, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to serve and protect. And as they patrolled the quiet streets of Crestwood, they felt a sense of comfort in knowing that the shadowy figure was not just a ghost but a guardian, watching over them as they carried out their duty, ensuring that the spirit of their fallen brother would never be forgotten. Officer Ryan Mitchell had been on the force for 5 years, known for his dedication and keen instincts. One rainy evening, he was called to a crime scene at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place had a reputation for being haunted, but Ryan was skeptical of such tales. He believed in facts, not folklore. As he surveyed the scene, Ryan noticed something glinting in the dim light. He approached and discovered an old police badge half buried in the dirt. It was tarnished and worn, but the insignia was still visible. Curious, he picked it up and examined it closely. The name engraved on the badge read, Officer James Harrington. Ryan felt a strange chill run down his spine. He had heard stories about Officer Harrington, a well-respected officer who had died in the line of duty many years ago. The circumstances surrounding his death were shrouded in mystery, and some claimed that his spirit lingered, seeking justice for an unsolved case. Despite the unease creeping into his mind, Ryan pocketed the badge, thinking it might be a valuable piece of evidence. As he returned to the station, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air felt heavy, and shadows seemed to dance at the edges of his vision. That night, as he prepared for bed, Ryan placed the badge on his nightstand. Almost immediately, he felt a wave of misfortune wash over him. His phone rang incessantly, and when he finally answered, it was his partner, Officer Lisa Grant, calling to inform him that their shift had been extended due to a sudden spike in calls. Frustrated, Ryan agreed to meet her at the station. As he drove, the rain poured down heavily, and visibility was poor. Suddenly, his car hit a pothole, causing a tire to blow out. Stranded on the side of the road, Ryan felt a sense of dread creeping in. He managed to call for a tow truck, but as he waited, he couldn't shake the feeling that the badge was somehow responsible for his misfortune. When he finally arrived at the station, Lisa greeted him with a concerned look. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost," she joked, but Ryan wasn't laughing. He recounted the events of the night, and Lisa listened intently. "Maybe you should get rid of that badge," she suggested. "It sounds like it's bringing you bad luck." But Ryan was reluctant. He felt a strange connection to the badge, as if it held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Over the next few days, however, the misfortunes continued. He received a parking ticket for a violation he was sure he hadn't committed, his favorite coffee shop ran out of his usual order, and he even had a minor altercation with a suspect during a routine stop that left him shaken. Determined to understand the badge's history, Ryan began researching Officer Harrington. He discovered that Harrington had been investigating a series of drug-related crimes before his untimely death. He had been shot during a raid gone wrong, and the case had remained unsolved, leaving many questions unanswered. As Ryan delved deeper, he learned that Harrington's family had never received closure. His widow had fought tirelessly for justice, but the case had gone cold. The more Ryan uncovered, the more he felt a sense of responsibility to honor Harrington's memory. One night, while reviewing the case files at the station, Ryan felt a sudden chill. The lights flickered, and he heard a faint whisper echoing through the room. "Find me," it seemed to say. Heart racing, he looked around but found no one there. The badge on his desk glinted ominously in the low light. Realizing that he needed to take action, Ryan decided to visit Harrington's widow, Mrs. Harrington. He hoped to learn more about the officer's life and the case that had haunted her for years. When he arrived at her home, she welcomed him with a warm smile, but her eyes held a deep sadness. As they spoke, Ryan shared the story of how he found the badge and the misfortunes that had followed. Mrs. Harrington listened intently, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "That badge has seen a lot of pain," she said softly. "James was a good man, and he deserves justice." Inspired by her words, Ryan vowed to solve the case. He returned to the station and gathered all the evidence he could find related to Harrington's last investigation. He pored over old reports, interviewed witnesses, and followed leads that had long been forgotten. Days turned into weeks, and just when Ryan felt like he was hitting a dead end, he received an anonymous tip about a local drug dealer who had been active during Harrington's time. The dealer had evaded capture for years, but Ryan was determined to bring him to justice. With Lisa's help, they set up a sting operation to catch the dealer. They gathered a team of officers and devised a plan to lure him out. The night of the operation, tension hung in the air as they waited for the dealer to arrive at the designated location. As they prepared, Ryan felt the weight of the badge in his pocket, a reminder of the officer whose legacy he was trying to honor. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The operation commenced, and soon enough, the dealer arrived, unaware of the trap that awaited him. The moment the dealer stepped out of his vehicle, Ryan and the team sprang into action. They moved swiftly, surrounding the suspect and apprehending him before he could react. As they cuffed him and read him his rights, Ryan felt a surge of relief wash over him. They had finally caught the man responsible for the chaos that had plagued their town and, in a way, avenged Officer Harrington. After the arrest, Ryan returned to the station, where the atmosphere was electric with excitement. The team celebrated their success, but Ryan felt a sense of calm wash over him. He knew that this was not just a victory for the department but also for Harrington's memory. That night, as Ryan sat at his desk, he took the badge out and examined it one last time. He felt a connection to the officer, a bond forged through shared purpose. With a newfound sense of closure, he decided to return the badge to Mrs. Harrington. He believed it belonged with her, a symbol of her husband's dedication and sacrifice. The next day, Ryan visited Mrs. Harrington again, this time with the badge in hand. When he presented it to her, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This means more to me than you can imagine. James would be proud." Ryan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had not only solved the case but had also given Mrs. Harrington a piece of her husband's legacy back. As he left her home, he felt a sense of peace that had eluded him since he found the badge. In the weeks that followed, the department held a memorial for Officer James Harrington, honoring his life and sacrifice. The community came together to remember the fallen officer, and Ryan spoke about the importance of justice and the impact of Harrington's work. As the ceremony concluded, Ryan felt a gentle breeze pass through the gathering, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the crowd. It was fleeting, but he felt a warmth in his heart, as if Harrington was there, watching over them, finally at peace. From that day forward, Ryan continued his work with renewed purpose, inspired by the legacy of Officer Harrington. The badge, once a source of misfortune, had become a symbol of justice and dedication. Ryan knew that he would carry Harrington's spirit with him as he patrolled the streets, ensuring that the sacrifices of those who came before him would never be forgotten. And as he drove through the town, he felt a sense of connection to the past, knowing that he was part of a larger story. A story of courage, duty, and the unbreakable bond between officers who serve and protect their community. In the quiet town of Eldridge, the nights were often still, with only the sounds of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves breaking the silence. However, the local police department had recently been receiving reports of a mysterious figure, a woman in a flowing white dress, wandering the streets late at night. The stories varied, but all shared a common thread. The woman seemed lost, her presence evoking a sense of sorrow and unease. Officer Daniel Hayes, a dedicated officer with a reputation for being level-headed, was on patrol one particularly foggy night when he received a call about the sightings. Intrigued, he decided to investigate. As he drove through the dimly lit streets, the fog thickened, wrapping the town in a shroud of mystery. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, Daniel spotted a figure standing by the side of the road. He slowed down, squinting through the fog. There she was, a woman in a white dress, her long hair cascading down her back. She stood motionless, staring into the distance, as if waiting for something or someone. Daniel's heart raced. He had heard the stories but had never encountered the woman himself. He parked the patrol car and stepped out, calling out to her. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman turned slowly, her face obscured by the mist. "I'm lost," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't find my way home." As Daniel approached, he felt an inexplicable chill in the air. "Where do you live?" he asked gently, trying to gauge her condition. But before he could get closer, the woman took a step back, her expression shifting from sadness to fear. "I can't stay here," she said, her voice trembling. "I have to go." And just like that, she turned and began to walk away, disappearing into the fog. Daniel blinked in disbelief. He rushed forward, but the mist swallowed her figure, leaving him standing alone in the eerie silence. Confused and unsettled, he returned to his patrol car, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? Why was she wandering the streets at night? Determined to uncover the truth, Daniel began to investigate the story surrounding the woman in white. He spoke to locals, piecing together fragments of her tale. It turned out that the woman was believed to be the spirit of a young mother named Clara, who had tragically lost her child in a car accident years ago. The accident had occurred on the very road where Daniel had seen her, and since then, her spirit had been seen wandering, searching for her lost child. The more Daniel learned, the more he felt a connection to Clara's story. He could sense her pain and sorrow, and he knew he had to help her find peace. That night, he returned to the spot where he had encountered her, hoping to make contact again. As he stood by the roadside, the fog rolled in once more, thickening around him. He called out softly, "Clara, if you can hear me, I want to help you. Please, show yourself." For a moment, there was silence. Then, as if summoned by his words, the figure of the woman in white appeared before him, her expression a mix of hope and despair. "You came back," she said, her voice trembling. "I want to help you find your child," Daniel replied earnestly. "Please, tell me what happened." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she recounted the tragic night of the accident. She had been driving home with her little girl when a reckless driver had collided with them. Clara had survived, but her daughter had not. The guilt and sorrow had consumed her, and she had been searching for her child ever since. "I can't let her go," Clara whispered, her voice breaking. "I need to find her." Daniel felt a surge of compassion for the grieving mother. "Clara, your daughter is at peace. She wouldn't want you to suffer like this. You need to let her go." The woman in white looked at him, her expression filled with anguish. "But how? I don't know how to move on." By remembering her and honoring her memory, Daniel said gently. "You can find peace by letting go of the pain. She will always be a part of you." As he spoke, the fog began to lift, and Clara's form shimmered in the moonlight. "I don't want to forget her," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You won't forget her," Daniel reassured her. "You can carry her memory in your heart. It's time to find peace." In that moment, Clara's expression softened, and a sense of calm washed over her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "I will try." With that, the fog enveloped Clara, and Daniel watched as her figure began to fade, the sorrow in her eyes replaced by a glimmer of hope. The air around him felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. He stood there for a moment, feeling a profound sense of connection to the spirit he had just encountered. As the last traces of the fog dissipated, Daniel took a deep breath, feeling a sense of closure for both Clara and himself. He knew that he had helped her find a way to let go of her pain, and in doing so, he had also found a deeper understanding of loss and healing. The next day, Daniel returned to the station and shared his experience with his fellow officers. He recounted the story of Clara and the tragic accident that had claimed her daughter's life. The other officers listened intently, some with tears in their eyes, moved by the tale of a mother's love and loss. Inspired by Clara's story, the department decided to hold a memorial for the victims of the accident, honoring not only Clara's daughter but all those who had lost their lives in similar tragedies. The event brought the community together, allowing people to share their stories of loss and remembrance. As the memorial unfolded, Daniel felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had not only helped a lost spirit find closure but had also brought the community together in a meaningful way. Clara's story resonated with many, reminding them of the importance of cherishing loved ones and finding ways to heal. In the weeks that followed, Daniel continued to patrol the streets of Eldridge, but he no longer felt the weight of sorrow that had once lingered in the air. The sightings of the woman in white ceased, and the town felt lighter, as if Clara's spirit had finally found rest. One night, as Daniel drove through the now familiar streets, he glanced at the spot where he had first encountered Clara. The moonlight illuminated the area, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw a figure standing by the roadside. He slowed down, his heart racing, but as he approached, he realized it was just a tree casting a shadow. Smiling to himself, he felt a sense of gratitude for the experience. Clara's story had taught him about compassion, loss, and the power of letting go. He knew that while the pain of losing a loved one never truly disappeared, it could be transformed into something beautiful, a memory that could inspire healing and connection. As he continued his patrol, Daniel felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was not just a police officer, he was a guardian of the community, a protector of its stories, and a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was always a path to light and healing. And somewhere in the quiet of the night, he felt certain that Clara was watching over them, her spirit free at last, her love for her daughter forever etched in the hearts of those who remembered. In the heart of the small town of Millfield stood an old jail, a crumbling relic of a bygone era. Built in the late 1800s, it had housed countless inmates over the years, each with their own story of crime and punishment. After being decommissioned, the jail was left to decay, but its haunting history made it a popular spot for ghost tours and paranormal investigations. One crisp autumn evening, Officer Sarah Collins and her partner, Officer Mike Reynolds, were assigned to lead a special tour of the old jail for a group of local history enthusiasts. The town had recently decided to open the jail to the public, hoping to share its rich history and perhaps attract some tourism. Sarah, a history buff, was excited to share the stories of the jail's infamous inmates, while Mike was more skeptical, preferring to focus on the facts rather than the folklore. As the group gathered outside the imposing stone structure, Sarah began her presentation. "Welcome to Millfield's old jail," she said, her voice echoing off the walls. "This building has seen its fair share of history, from notorious criminals to tragic tales of despair." As they entered the jail, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt heavy, and the dim light cast eerie shadows on the walls. The group moved through the narrow corridors, peering into the empty cells that had once held desperate souls. Sarah recounted stories of the jail's most infamous inmates, including a notorious bank robber and a woman accused of witchcraft. As they reached the end of the corridor, Mike noticed a sudden drop in temperature. He glanced at Sarah, who was engrossed in her storytelling. "Did you feel that?" he whispered, but she didn't respond. The group continued to listen intently, unaware of the chill that had settled in the air. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the hall, causing everyone to pause. "Did you hear that?" one of the tour participants asked, looking around nervously. Mike frowned, trying to rationalize the sound. "It's probably just the wind," he said, but even he felt a twinge of unease. As they moved deeper into the jail, the whispers grew louder, and the sound of footsteps seemed to follow them. The group exchanged glances, their excitement turning to apprehension. Sarah, sensing the tension, tried to keep the mood light. "This place has a lot of history, and with history comes stories. Some say the spirits of former inmates still roam these halls." Just then, a door creaked open on its own, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. Mike stepped forward, his skepticism wavering. "Okay, that was weird," he admitted, glancing at Sarah, who looked equally startled. They continued the tour, but the atmosphere grew increasingly unsettling. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, and the whispers seemed to call out to them, urging them to listen. As they approached the solitary confinement cells, Sarah felt a sudden wave of sadness wash over her. This is where the most troubled inmates were kept, she explained softly. Many of them never left these walls. As she spoke, a figure appeared at the end of the corridor, a shadowy silhouette that seemed to flicker in and out of existence. The group gasped, and Mike instinctively stepped in front of Sarah, his heart racing. "Stay back," he shouted, but the figure vanished before their eyes. "Did you see that?" one of the participants exclaimed, her voice trembling. "What was that?" "I don't know," Mike replied, his skepticism fading. "But we should get out of here." Just as they turned to leave, the whispers intensified, echoing off the stone walls. "Help us, the voices pleaded, sending chills down their spines. Sarah felt a deep sense of compassion for the lost souls trapped within the jail. "They're trying to communicate," she said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. The group huddled together, unsure of what to do. "We need to listen," Sarah urged. "These spirits have stories to tell, and they deserve to be heard." With newfound determination, they gathered in a circle, closing their eyes and focusing on the whispers. "We're here," Sarah said softly. "We want to hear your stories. You're not alone." As they stood in silence, the air around them shifted. The whispers transformed into coherent words, recounting tales of despair, regret, and longing. The group listened intently, feeling the weight of the inmates' stories pressing upon them. After what felt like an eternity, the whispers began to fade, replaced by a profound sense of peace. The temperature in the room returned to normal, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. The group opened their eyes, feeling a connection to the spirits they had just encountered. "Thank you," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion. "We will remember you." As the words left her lips, a gentle breeze swept through the corridor, as if the spirits were acknowledging their gratitude. The group stood in silence, absorbing the experience they had just shared. The fear that had gripped them moments before was replaced by a sense of understanding and compassion. Mike, still processing what had just happened, turned to Sarah. "I can't believe we just talked to them," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought this was all just folklore." Sarah smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the warmth of the moment. "Sometimes, the stories are more than just tales. They're the echoes of lives lived and lost. We owe it to them to remember." As they made their way back through the jail, the atmosphere felt lighter. The oppressive weight that had hung in the air earlier was gone, replaced by a sense of calm. The group exited the building, stepping into the cool night air, feeling as if they had left a part of themselves behind within those walls. Outside, the moon shone brightly, illuminating the path ahead. The participants exchanged excited chatter, their initial fear transformed into awe and reverence for the experience they had just shared. They thanked Sarah and Mike for leading the tour, their eyes sparkling with newfound appreciation for the history of the old jail. As the last of the group departed, Sarah and Mike lingered for a moment, looking back at the imposing structure. "Do you think they'll be okay now?" Mike asked, a hint of concern in his voice. "I think so," Sarah replied thoughtfully. "We listened. We honored their stories. That's what they needed." Just then, a soft rustling sound caught their attention. They turned to see a shadow flitting across the window of one of the cells. Mike's heart raced, but Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "It's just a reminder that they're still here, watching over this place." As they walked back to their patrol car, Mike couldn't shake the feeling that the old jail had changed them in some way. "You know, I came into this thinking it was all nonsense, but now, I don't know. I feel different." Sarah nodded, understanding the weight of his words. It's easy to dismiss what we can't see or understand. But sometimes, the past has a way of reaching out to us, reminding us of the lives that came before. The two officers drove away from the old jail, the moonlight guiding their path. As they left, they felt a sense of purpose, knowing that they had given a voice to the forgotten souls of Millfield. The experience had deepened their connection to the community and to each other, reminding them of the importance of empathy and understanding in their line of work. In the weeks that followed, the old jail became a focal point for the town, not just as a historical site but as a place of remembrance. Sarah and Mike organized community events to honor the stories of the inmates who had once called it home, inviting local historians and families to share their connections to the past. The whispers that had once echoed through the halls transformed into stories of resilience and redemption, and the old jail became a symbol of healing for the community. People began to visit not just to explore its haunted history but to pay tribute to the lives that had been intertwined within its walls. And as the seasons changed, the old jail stood firm, a testament to the power of stories and the importance of remembering those who had come before. Sarah and Mike continued their patrols, forever changed by their encounter with the woman in white and the spirits of the old jail, knowing that they had helped bridge the gap between the past and the present. In the quiet of the night, as they patrolled the streets of Millfield, they often felt a gentle breeze pass by, a reminder that the spirits they had encountered were still with them, watching over the town they had sworn to protect. In the heart of a small town, nestled between the shadows of towering trees, stood the old police station. It had served the community for decades, but after a series of renovations, it was deemed too outdated and was replaced by a modern facility. However, the old station remained, its weathered bricks and creaking floors a testament to the many stories it held within its walls. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow over the town, Officer Sarah Mitchell and her partner, Officer Tom Harris, prepared for another long night shift. The air was thick with anticipation, as the old station had gained a reputation for being haunted. Officers who had worked the night shift before spoke in hushed tones about strange occurrences, unexplained noises, flickering lights, and an unsettling feeling of being watched. "Do you really believe in all that ghost stuff?" Tom asked, trying to sound skeptical, but a hint of nervousness crept into his voice. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her eyes scanning the dimly lit room. "But I've heard the stories. They say the ghost of Officer James O'Reilly haunts this place. He died in the line of duty over 20 years ago." As the clock struck midnight, the station was enveloped in silence, save for the occasional rustle of papers and the distant hum of the heating system. The two officers settled into their routine, monitoring the radio and checking the security cameras. But as the hours passed, the atmosphere grew heavier, and the shadows seemed to dance along the walls. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the station, causing both officers to jump. "What was that?" Tom exclaimed, his heart racing. "Probably just the old building settling," Sarah suggested, though she felt a chill run down her spine. They exchanged nervous glances, but curiosity got the better of them. They decided to investigate the source of the noise. As they walked down the dimly lit hallway, the flickering lights overhead cast ominous shadows. They reached the evidence room, where the noise had originated. The door creaked open, revealing a disarray of boxes and files. Just as they were about to turn back, they heard a soft whisper, almost like a plea for help. "Did you hear that?" Tom asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," Sarah replied, her heart pounding. It sounded like it came from the back. They cautiously moved deeper into the room, their flashlights illuminating the dust motes swirling in the air. As they reached the far corner, they saw a figure, a translucent silhouette of a man in a police uniform, his face etched with sorrow. "Officer O'Reilly?" Sarah gasped, recognizing the ghostly figure from the old photographs she had seen in the station's archives. The apparition nodded slowly, his eyes filled with a haunting sadness. "Help me," he whispered, his voice echoing in the stillness. "I cannot rest." Tom and Sarah exchanged bewildered looks. "What do you need?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. The ghost pointed toward a dusty box on the shelf. "My badge, it was lost. Find it, and I can finally be at peace." Determined to help, the officers began rummaging through the boxes. After what felt like an eternity, they uncovered a tarnished badge buried beneath old case files. As they held it up, the ghostly figure smiled, a look of gratitude washing over his face. "Thank you," he whispered, his form beginning to fade. "You have freed me." With that, the room filled with a warm light, and the ghost of Officer O'Reilly vanished, leaving behind a sense of calm. The flickering lights steadied, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. Tom and Sarah stood in silence, processing what had just happened. "Did we really just see that?" Tom asked, still in disbelief. "I think we did," Sarah replied, a sense of accomplishment washing over her. "We helped him find peace." From that night on, the old police station felt different. The strange noises ceased, and the feeling of being watched faded away. The officers who followed would often share the story of the haunted station, but now it was a tale of redemption rather than fear, a reminder that even in the darkest places, there is always a chance for light to shine through. As the weeks turned into months, the old police station transformed from a place of dread into a site of reverence. The story of Officer James O'Reilly's ghost spread throughout the department, and many officers who had once dreaded the night shift now approached it with a sense of purpose. They would often leave a small token, a badge, a photograph, or a note, on the desk where O'Reilly had once worked, as a way to honor his memory and acknowledge his sacrifice. Sarah and Tom became known as the ghost officers among their colleagues. They often recounted the night they encountered O'Reilly, sharing the details of how they had helped him find peace. Their story inspired others to look beyond the fear of the unknown and to embrace the history that the old station represented. One evening, as Sarah was preparing for her shift, she received a call from the new police chief, Chief Ramirez. "Sarah, I want you to come to the old station tonight. We're planning a small ceremony to honor Officer O'Reilly and the history of this place. I think it's important for the department to acknowledge our past." Touched by the invitation, Sarah agreed. That night, she and Tom arrived at the station, where a small group of officers had gathered. Chief Ramirez stood at the front, flanked by a table adorned with candles and a framed photograph of Officer O'Reilly. "Tonight, we honor not just Officer O'Reilly, but all those who have served and sacrificed in this department," Chief Ramirez began, his voice steady. "This station has seen its share of darkness, but it has also been a place of courage, camaraderie, and resilience. Let us remember those who came before us and the legacy they left behind." As the ceremony unfolded, officers shared stories of their experiences in the old station, some recounting their own encounters with the supernatural. Laughter and camaraderie filled the air, dispelling the lingering fears that had once haunted the building. When it was Sarah and Tom's turn to speak, they recounted their encounter with O'Reilly, emphasizing the importance of compassion and understanding in their line of work. As the night wore on, they lit candles in memory of fallen officers, creating a warm glow that filled the room. The atmosphere was charged with a sense of unity and respect, a stark contrast to the fear that had once permeated the station. Just as the ceremony was concluding, a sudden chill swept through the room, and the lights flickered momentarily. The officers exchanged glances, a mix of surprise and excitement evident on their faces. Sarah felt a familiar presence, a gentle warmth that enveloped her. She smiled, knowing that Officer O'Reilly was there with them, watching over his comrades. "Thank you, James," she whispered, feeling a sense of gratitude for the connection they had forged. The officers stood in silence for a moment, acknowledging the spirit that had once haunted the station but now felt like a guardian. As the ceremony came to a close, Chief Ramirez encouraged everyone to continue sharing their stories and to keep the memory of their fallen colleagues alive. Let this be a reminder that we are all part of something greater than ourselves. We carry the legacy of those who came before us, and we must honor it in our actions every day. With renewed purpose, the officers left the old station that night, their hearts lighter and their spirits lifted. The haunted whispers of the past had transformed into a legacy of hope and remembrance. The old police station, once a place of fear, had become a sanctuary of stories, a testament to the bravery of those who had served, and a reminder that even in the darkest of places, light could always find a way to shine through. As Sarah and Tom walked out into the cool night air, they felt a sense of closure. The old station would always hold its secrets, but now it was a place where the past and present coexisted harmoniously. They knew that Officer O'Reilly's spirit would forever be a part of their lives, guiding them as they continued their duty to protect and serve. And so, the legend of the haunted station lived on, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of redemption, courage, and the enduring bond between those who serve and those who have sacrificed everything for the greater good. In the dimly lit corridors of the old police station, the evidence room stood as a silent guardian of secrets long buried. It was a place where the remnants of past cases were stored, evidence from crimes that had shaken the community, personal belongings of victims, and items that held stories waiting to be told. But lately, the officers assigned to the night shift had begun to whisper about strange occurrences within those walls. Officer Lisa Grant, a seasoned detective with a keen intuition, had heard the rumors. Items moving on their own, cold spots in the air, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched were just a few of the unsettling reports. Some officers claimed to have seen shadows flitting between the shelves, while others spoke of hearing faint whispers echoing through the room. The evidence room had become a source of unease, and Lisa was determined to uncover the truth. One night, as the clock struck midnight, Lisa found herself alone in the station, tasked with inventorying the evidence. The air was thick with tension, and the flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the walls. She steeled herself, reminding herself that she was a detective, trained to face the unknown. As she entered the evidence room, the door creaked ominously behind her. The room was filled with shelves stacked high with boxes, each containing remnants of lives interrupted. Lisa began her work, methodically checking off items on her list. But as she moved deeper into the evidence room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was not alone. The air felt charged, and a chill crept up her spine. She paused, listening intently, and thought she heard a faint whisper, like a voice carried on the wind. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing in the stillness. There was no response, just the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Shaking off the unease, she continued her work, but the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Suddenly, a box on a nearby shelf toppled over, spilling its contents onto the floor. Startled, Lisa jumped back, her heart racing. She knelt to pick up the scattered items, a broken watch, a faded photograph, and a small, rusted key. As she held the photograph up to the light, she recognized the face of a young woman who had been reported missing years ago. The case had gone cold, and the woman's family had never received closure. "Is this you?" Lisa whispered, feeling a connection to the lost soul. The air around her seemed to thrum with energy, and she could almost feel the presence of the woman, urging her to listen. Determined to understand what was happening, Lisa decided to conduct a little experiment. She set the photograph back down and began to speak aloud. "If there's anyone here, I want to help you. Please, let me know what you need." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the lights flickered again, and the temperature in the room dropped. Lisa felt a rush of air, and the whispers intensified, forming words that were barely audible. "Help, find me." Her heart raced as she realized that the spirits of the victims might be trying to communicate. Lisa took a deep breath, focusing on the energy in the room. "I will help you. I promise. Just show me what I need to do." As if in response, the lights flickered once more, and the rusted key she had found began to move, sliding across the floor toward a locked cabinet in the corner of the room. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She approached the cabinet, her hands trembling as she inserted the key into the lock. With a click, the door swung open, revealing a collection of old case files, some covered in dust, others yellowed with age. Inside, she found a file labeled with the name of the missing woman from the photograph. As she flipped through the pages, she discovered details about the investigation that had been abandoned years ago. Leads that had gone cold, witnesses who had never been interviewed, and a list of suspects that had never been fully explored. Why was this case left unsolved? Lisa murmured, her mind racing. She felt a surge of determination. "I won't let your story end here." With renewed purpose, Lisa gathered the files and began to piece together the evidence. She spent the next few hours meticulously reviewing the case, making notes, and formulating a plan to reopen the investigation. The whispers in the room seemed to quiet, as if the spirits were watching her with hope. As dawn broke, Lisa emerged from the evidence room, exhausted but exhilarated. She had a new mission: to bring justice to the victims whose voices had been silenced. She shared her findings with her colleagues, and together they decided to reopen the cold case, determined to find the truth. Over the following weeks, Lisa and her team worked tirelessly, following leads that had long been forgotten. They interviewed witnesses, re-examined evidence, and uncovered new information that had been overlooked. With each step, Lisa felt the presence of the spirits guiding her, their whispers now a chorus of encouragement. Finally, after months of hard work, they made a breakthrough. A witness came forward with crucial information that led them to a suspect who had been living in the shadows for years. The case that had once seemed hopeless was now on the verge of resolution. When the suspect was apprehended, Lisa felt a wave of relief wash over her. She knew that the spirits of the victims had played a vital role in bringing the truth to light. As she stood outside the station, watching the sun rise over the horizon, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. In the weeks that followed, the old police station became a place of healing. The evidence room, once filled with fear and uncertainty, transformed into a sanctuary of hope and justice. Officers began to share their own stories of encounters with the spirits, and the community rallied around the families of the victims, offering support and compassion. Lisa often returned to the evidence room, feeling a connection to the souls who had once lingered there. She would light a candle in their memory, whispering words of gratitude for their guidance. The haunted whispers had become a source of strength, reminding her that even in the darkest of times, the spirits of the past could help illuminate the path to justice. And so, the haunted evidence room became a symbol of resilience and redemption within the police department. The stories of the victims were no longer just remnants of the past, they were woven into the fabric of the community, reminding everyone of the importance of justice and compassion. As the months passed, Lisa continued to advocate for the families of victims, ensuring that their stories were heard and that no case would be left unsolved again. The department established a new protocol for handling cold cases, emphasizing the need for thorough investigations and the importance of listening to the voices of the past. One evening, as Lisa was preparing to leave the station after a long day, she decided to visit the evidence room one last time. The air was still, and the familiar chill enveloped her as she stepped inside. She lit a candle and placed it on the table, surrounded by photographs of the victims they had helped. "Thank you for guiding me," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "I promise to keep fighting for you and for all those who can't speak for themselves." As she stood in the quiet room, she felt a warm breeze brush past her, and the flickering candlelight danced in response. It was as if the spirits were acknowledging her promise, their presence a comforting reminder that they were never truly gone. In the following years, the old police station became a place of remembrance, where officers would gather to share stories of the past and honor the lives lost. The evidence room, once a source of fear, transformed into a space of reflection and healing. Families of victims were invited to participate in annual memorials, where they could share their loved ones' stories and connect with the officers who had worked tirelessly to bring justice. Lisa's dedication to the victims' families earned her respect and admiration within the community. She became a beacon of hope, inspiring others to take up the mantle of justice and compassion. The haunted whispers that had once filled the evidence room now served as a reminder of the power of connection and the importance of never giving up on those who had been silenced. As the years went by, Lisa often reflected on her journey. The evidence room had taught her that every item held a story, and every victim deserved to be remembered. The spirits of the past had guided her, but it was her determination and the support of her colleagues that had brought about real change. One day, while reviewing a new case file, Lisa received a call from a family member of a victim who had been